I'm officially live on Substack. This will be my first one. Um, and it's a snowy day in the east and the south of the US for those that are outside of the US. And I did some shoveling. I took care of myself and my house and three neighbors. And I wanted to talk a little bit about arousal as it stands with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Audre Lorde. And this is a conversation that I'm having with myself right now because, so a friend posted something about Martin Luther King's letters from Birmingham when he was in jail. And it speaks to fighting evil. I need you to, I'm just going to give you the bullets on it, right? So the first, and just follow me because it goes places. So, all right. Martin Luther King says from the Birmingham letters, he says, first, um, identify the the injustice that's happening. Second, we must attempt to dialogue with those committing the injustice. um, we can influence justice to be returned. Okay. Third, he says, if the dialogue is unsuccessful, we can prepare our soul for civil disobedience in a non-violent resistance. He further says that we must be prepared for beatings, attacks, imprisonment, etc., and we must not retaliate. He says, we prepare for the worst and must prepare to not respond with violence, no matter how violent the response. Fourth, we remain peaceful at all costs, including death and torture. Now, that is not something that I am leaning in towards, to say it lovingly, right? Because we're witnessing our families be taken. We're witnessing people be killed. Um, and I understand the relevance of peace. I do think and recognize that we are whole people. So that's when I called in Uncle Malcolm. I called in Uncle Malcolm, and Uncle Malcolm is like, yo, we can't negotiate any kind of governance or any kind of peace if we do not have safety secured, protections secured. So we are not to be played with by any means necessary, right? So there's another perspective of, yo, get down or lay down, but this conversation for peace cannot happen without the container. Now, so I sat with at first I sat with my uncles, right? And it's interesting because I'm sitting with my uncles, Uncle Malcolm, Uncle Martin, sitting with them, and I'm just like, but you know what? They had terrible relationships. Yes, they were married. Yes, they had women that they were with. They had whole families. But yo, you know what? That hero stance always has jacked up relationships, non-reciprocal, and they're always having to worry about liability loved ones. And I was thinking about that and I was like, And so going back to Martin, Uncle Martin, right? There's this conversation of, because his letter is about evil. And so when we're talking about evil, I have this playful thing where I'm like, every time, like, think about, like, I'm aging myself, but think about when you was watching, like, He-Man or She-Ra or any one of I mean, hell, you could even talk about SpongeBob, right? The evil villain always has this laugh, this, and they are having a ball. They are laughing ecstatically. They are laughing ecstatically. And you know, evil backwards spells live. So hear me, follow where I'm at right now, follow me. So what I'm looking at is there is an inherent disconnect in that nervous system and the value system that is being chosen. And I went to Uncle Malcolm and I went to Uncle Martin because my brain says, well, conflict is masculine, right? It's penetrative. And so I will call in the living archetypes that are in this field, that live in this field, so that we can have um, some vantage point or reference points on how we can navigate this world, this conflict, this shift and change that we will make it to the other side, right? But how do we have the stance to do so? But the shit is just really, really fragmented. And I'm not one for, jumping on any bandwagons and causing drama. Like I like to get to the root of it. I do. I really, really do. That's my Piscean way. Have lots of placements there. So after looking into my perceived masculine navigation, I said, wait, I had to remind my prefrontal cortex, right? That part that says I, right, wrong, good, bad, all that duality stuff. And then I had to pull it out and say, hold on, remember, just reminding me that bodies hold masculine and feminine energies. And so I recognized in my uncles did not hold feminine and masculine balance in the way that their nervous systems could create a field container to hold all that happened. And we're not trying to end this in martyrism. We're not doing that. I'm not for that. So Auntie Audre Lorde showed up. And of course, I'm going to resonate and overflow with the things that she has to share, Auntie, because she speaks to sexual energy being a means of navigation. She speaks of when we are in our raw conflict. It's just ingredients. It's raw material. You don't land in it. You use it to inform your decision making. So less fragmented. So then when I sit with all three, when I sit with all of my elders in this space, right? There's Malcolm, Uncle Malcolm on one end, there's Uncle Martin on the other, extremes, right? But still looking towards the same goal. And then we have Auntie Audra, who she lives in between them. She lives beneath them. She lives on top of them because she understands another way of being. Now, I want to read something to you really quickly, okay? And maybe this will support. And why I'm bringing up SDS, it's going to come in. It's going to come in. SDS is coming, okay? Um, so, all right. So when Audra talks about anger, she speaks of anger in a form of information, not disruption, right? And so the conversation really is, can you sit in the intensity to listen, or are you overwhelmed by it in its amplification that you just lean into whatever your default conversations are? What do I mean? What do I mean? Let me read something from her, Audra. Give me one sec, y'all. I know I could have had this prepared, but I didn't. So work with me here. You know what? But as I'm looking for it, just to keep your mind moving, I'm also um I'm bringing in SDS and the conflict between Tia and Marla. And yes, they are two very giant energies. Um, and erotic, yes. They're two giant energies, and as they are giant energies, because it's sexuality, it hasn't been integrated into our society for us to really understand what the fuck is going on there. Like, yes, they are having a friend break up in some form of fashion, or a friend transition. But understand these are two Black women, femme women, that are coming from very different nervous system trainings, right? Very different. Um, and when they came together, they were able to hold a massive container for all kinds of people to experience consent culture, express themselves sexually, express themselves in any which way, right? And here they are now navigating a conflict that has to do with systems that is being put upon them, not invited, but put upon them because they are in the bodies that they're in. So there is something really deep to learn here. So now let me open up Audre, right? Uses of the erotic. And I want to open this up because I need you to understand why Auntie Audre is 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 in and between. Right? Now, I get that in her uses of erotic, she is speaking from the place of a lesbian woman who has also been put upon, right? So, okay, looks like I chose okay. mm, okay, here it is. The erotic is a resource within each of us that lies in a deeply female and spiritual plane, firmly rooted in the power of our unexpressed or unrecognized feeling. In order to perpetuate itself, every op- every oppression must corrupt or distort those various sources of power within culture of the oppressed that can provide energy. I'm going to stop here. So understand that in Uncle Malcolm and Uncle Martin's views, both are still working within the oppressed system. Uncle Malcolm is being reactionary. He is and he isn't, but he's being reactionary. He's ready for war by all means necessary, right? And we know that when we are in that space, that can also shift our um, our access to our firmly rooted power. And Uncle Martin says, quiet it up and have your rage, but let your rage be without container, inside, no expression, unexpressed. Neither are firmly rooted. When we use the power of the erotic, it is rooted. Now, what do I mean by rooted? This is the part that I'm going to bring us back to SDS. When erotic power is fully when erotic power is fully rooted, then we understand where we are in where our excitement is, or our arousal to excitement, our arousal to anger, our arousal to sadness, our arousal to revolt, whatever it is, your erotic, when you're rooted in it, you understand how much aperture you are allowing in and out. Because if you don't have yourself firmly rooted in your arousal, then excitement and anger will take you off of your observation, so much so that you lose your energetic ground. You lose your understanding of your foundational sensation of the field that you have built. So, when it comes to Marla, when it comes to SDS, when it comes to Tia, we're looking at, if we're taking it out of their personal for just a moment and just looking at the archetypes that they are, we can recognize that we have one, they're both influenced by the systems that have been put upon them, right? Because they're fighting about money, right? And I'm saying they're fighting. The conflict arose, right? I don't want to land anything on them. So we want to be careful with our language, right? So conflict arose by the field of money, scarcity, health, um, is mentioned in the emails that were sent out around this. And then we also have a space of, yeah, we gotta make sure that responsibility to our community. And we can't just put all of our personal business out to the community, especially while we're in legal mediation and trying to figure out how to navigate where this lands. Their argument or their conflict is truly about systems. What systems have they adopted that they have brought their arousal to lay in meaning, to lay in uh, for a way of a way of expressing the identities that they represent. So what I am recognizing, what I'm learning from my conversations with Uncle Malcolm, Uncle Martin, Aunt Lorde, Aunt Audre Lorde, and the founders of SDS is that intimacy is the intimacy is not something to put aside. Intimacy is not something that I'll get to later. Intimacy is an infrastructure that must be implicitly named, embodied in our leadership, in our governance, in our negotiations. I've shared on this platform that I'm perceiving transaction not as something that we throw away. Transactional relating happens, right? I don't know a store owner, but if a store owner has exactly what I need, and I just need it, I'm going to give them money and the transaction will happen. Transaction happens also in the space where intimacy has not been built yet, or the container hasn't been solidified enough for for intimacy to grow. So, as we're sitting in this, intimacy as a negotiation, intimacy as infrastructure in negotiation is it's non-negotiable when it comes to navigating community. And it's also non arousal is Awareness of your arousal is non-negotiable when you are navigating community, when you're leading community, when you're holding space for community. Because if you don't know how to navigate your arousal, I don't care what the arousal looks like. The arousal can be, it can be arousal to lust. It can be arousal to anger. It can be arousal to winning. I don't care what it is. If you are not firmly rooted in erotic power, then the shit goes left. It goes left. And it doesn't matter what it looks like because it has to start with the energy that you're holding and how you're navigating that energy. I'm gonna bring up, I'm gonna bring up Auntie. She's coming. She's coming. Auntie, the sway of my hips. Help me out, y'all. Help me out. Um, dang. Hold on. Um, I'm firmly rooting in my uh in my arousal because I am getting aroused about this. I'm excited that there's something new. Auntie Maya Angelou, right? And also another another embodied feminine energy who also navigates and understands her masculine, right? And she speaks of her power being unmoved, phenomenal woman. And I need us to understand that yes, we're talking about the span of her hips. We are talking about the stride of her step. We're talking about the curl of her lips. That's the charisma that we found in Obama. No, he does not have the span of the hips, but best believe he is walking with that charisma that her poem, that her embodiment is showing us. So listen here, y'all. So I could wrap this up because I think I can keep going with this forever. Um, what I'm saying when I'm calling in the energies of Uncle Malcolm, Uncle Martin, Auntie Audra, Auntie Maya, these are profound leaders. And when we look at them together, there's a sequence that happens. There's a sequence that can be unfolded. And the sequence that I'm going to be working on in my own alchemy, and I'm recognizing all these conflicts because I am recognizing conflicts within my own field. I want to take, it's in a sequence, right? So I'm going to take Uncle Malcolm. I'm going to take Uncle Malcolm's non-negotiable by any means necessary. I'm going to take that, right? I'm going to mix it in with uh, Auntie Audra. And right, so we're talking about anchoring. So I'm going to take that by any means necessary, but anchoring it in my erotic roots. So that means that when I put out a Malcolm speak, that means that I am recognizing first pillar of Intimate Alchemist. I am infinite. Therefore, everything already exists. So don't get it twisted. Yes, I'm sweet. Yes, I can be soft, but you can also get fucked up. Okay. But since I'm wildly rooted, I don't have to hold the sword because I already see what's coming. Then I'm going to bring in Uncle Martin because Uncle Martin, Uncle Martin's stance only works after the container has been held by Uncle Malcolm and Auntie Audre. Okay. Now, once that container is held, right, and that container says, yo, this is a space of, I use the word safe, right? Safe is, I want you to understand that I don't believe that thing is actually safe. What I'm talking about when I say safe is what it feels like in my body when my body is like, oh, I can do whatever I feel. That kind of feeling. So a container that feels safe, a container that names what the fuck is going on and how this can no longer happen, right? And a container that offers protections. And I'm going to just go a little further because I call in all these archetypes. So I also want to bring in our family, the cicadas. Now, cicadas, they have no known ways of attacking or protecting themselves outside of unionizing. So when they unionize themselves, then it makes it difficult for predators to come after them. So, yep, I'm in that space. So I'm gonna sprinkle in some cicadas in this pot. So that is the protection. That is the knowing. That is the rooting in our erotic power. And when I say erotic power, I'm not saying this loosely. I'm talking about what arouses you in life, what arouses you to your mission. So it is top priority. Understand? So that's the container. Then within the container, we will then sew in Uncle Martin and Auntie Maya because Uncle Martin is all about still holding it. He's holding it, gangster as fuck, holding it. Like I don't care. You can say whatever you want to me. You can try to tap in, but he's like, stay solid. So that means that while this container has been created, when the discussions and negotiations happen, you must be unmovable. You got to be so steady. So Uncle Martin is bridging, right? Or rather, Auntie Lorde, uh, Auntie Audre is bridging that to be unmoved, super rooted. And then Auntie Maya comes in and lays on the charisma, lays on the intimacy that Uncle Martin and Uncle Malcolm missed. Auntie Maya speaks to her time being a sex worker. And in my writings, I also talk about sex work. And I talk about how sex work becomes a great alchemizer for what society refuses to address. So, all those secrets, all those frustrations, all those secret desires that have gone unfulfilled, those sex workers meet that. So, that level of intimacy, that level of openness, that level of steadiness, let me tell you, working in sex work, I used to answer phones, I used to negotiate for them, but it was a shared business. And I'm gonna tell you that I have till now, I have not learned more. I have not learned more about the world. And I've studied. I study. I don't lead with academia. I enjoy it. And let me tell you, you are not gonna learn more. You're not gonna learn more than what you can from a grounded, rooted sex worker. And I'm not talking about sex worker that's like, oh yeah, my friend. No, I'm talking about sex worker that put it out there and they don't know who's gonna come to their door, but they trust their intuition, and the energy that they are deeply rooted in to navigate that. And not every sex worker has that. P.S. And by the way, there are lots of sex workers that have been abused, that have been kidnapped, that have been trafficked, that have been that entered through trauma, and all of these things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sex workers that their soul understands what this work is, and they have understanding of how to clear their energy, clear their field. They keep their bodies better than they keep their bodies healthier and more hygienic than your day-to-day person that says, "Oh, I've only been with two people," or whatever it is. And that's not to clown, it's just to embody the judgment that also swims in the surface of our shallow density of our society. Speaking specifically of the US, yes, it bleeds over into global, but I'm just going to speak to the US until I have greater embodiment and intimacy with the cultures, because I can read about it, I can um, I can visit, but I even know anthropologists that are not ready to really speak to what it is, because even anthropologists, if they don't have the grounded rootedness in their own erotic power, there's certain perceptions that just won't be. So, lastly, um, just the biological aspect of our aroused power. When you are in your aroused state in pleasure, your brain taps into your alpha, your theta, and your gamma waves. When it taps into that, it sends a message through your whole body. And your senses for this sensational life, because if you have a body, you have senses, and these sensations allow us to navigate our infinites. So when you are rooted in your aroused power, you are then able to tap into and get backed up fully by the universe, because you're when you tap in to your gamma, your theta, and your alpha waves, you tap into the heartbeat of the planet. When you tap into the heart of the planet, you then connect and continued exchange with the energetic field that is happening between your body and the planet. And then naturally, the planet harmonizes with the with other planets in our solar system. Our solar system amplifies and resonates with the rest of the universe forever. So, I need a call to action. Otherwise, I'm just masturbating, which I do enjoy. So, I'm going to invite you to an session online. We'll start slow. I have intentions to build this towards our spring equinox, which is also my birthday month, which is also Pisces season. I end Pisces season. And Pisces season, today is the last day. Today is the last day that Neptune is in Pisces before it moves into Aries. So that means for this Pisces right here, the last since 2011, it's been in our sign. And I'm gonna tell you, my entry was wild. 2011, I went through 38 deaths, friends, and I'm not talking about distant friends. I'm talking about identifying bodies. I'm talking about planning their funerals. I'm talking about mentors leaving. embodied space with me. So 2011 entered, and it was like, fuck that. Need to disconnect from everything and understand what this is. So I am fucking celebrating that we are getting out of Neptune in Pisces, because now as we move into Aries, it's a get ready, get set, fucking go. So I want these sessions to lead up to spring equinox. And that spring equinox will seed many things that we will be cultivating from now until then. This will assist you in being so much more prepared for the seeds that you've been planting so that you can nurture them for the spring and then take off for your summer. And we know that when the summer happens, and summer is it's a masculine season. So that means there's lots of penetration, there's lots of actionable things. So what we're witnessing, all of this conflict that's happening in the field, give yourself some time. Give yourself some time to truly prepare for this and understand what your alchemy can and will bring. This is where you own yourself being an intentional creator, an intentional co-creator. Because Aries is all about self, right? It's the face, it's fire. Aries is like, I'm over it. You are bringing all of what you have been working with into your into your Aries field. And then, y'all, it's layered with us moving into an Aquarian era. So, understand your position in your body, your relationship with your arousal. There's no more space for, I don't like those people, and There's no more space for that shit. We're going to have to navigate ourselves. So you don't got to believe my word. You don't got to trust anything that I'm saying. I just have an offering. My offering are these sessions. That's the call to action. So I'll place it here. I didn't even set it up on the website for you to to tap in yet. I will. I will. Yeah, corporate move-in just doesn't always work for me. So it starts with the intimacy and then I build. My consciousness happens and then I build. That's the sequence. I don't need an algorithm to tell me how to talk to people. So, but the algorithm is helpful to know what the response is, since I can't speak to each individual person. That's how I use the algorithm. All right, y'all. So I'm probably going to take a little mid-morning nap, then get up again. This is the second time I've woken up. I'm going to shovel some snow. I'm going to make some breakfast. And I'm going to build out those things that I was talking about. Be serious about this, y'all. This era changing. Be serious about your life. We can't hide anymore. Look, you see my eyes? Look at this. This is because my body literally won't stop. It won't stop. My focus is so wild. And so I have to make myself go to sleep because I am so charged with what's happening. But our energy and our bodies need to align. So while I am channeling all of this aroused energy, I need to match it. I need to match it with rest. So just letting you know I'm taking my own advice. And it's also to say we hide nothing. We hide nothing. Have an orgasmic day.